and don't worry about, oh, well, I'm not going to do it. There's too many people talking about leadership or sales or whatever the topic is. But no one knows it the way you do. No one has your stories and your experiences the way you do. So you're going to stand out because you're going to be different and you're going to find your audience. If you're 50 and you just lost your job, like Jim Rohn used to say, how am I more valuable to the marketplace? You've got to learn skills. They might be AI skills, they might be social media skills to make you more valuable to the marketplace. So you're going to have to take a breath. You're going to have to educate yourself to know how to navigate the new world that's out here and really to stand out. I mean, of course, books is my number one thing. When you curate a book, you have instant credibility and you become the expert. They say the two most trusted people are doctors and authors.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Selling with Love podcast. I'm very excited about the conversation we're going to have today. If you've been looking to grow your reach, you've had thoughts of going viral, maybe you've wanted to write a book, whatever it is, you're actually trying to get recognized a lot more online, and you're wanting to use that as a way to support the growth of your business. We have an expert that's joining us today who has experience in traditional media and has been crushing it with new media and has been helping authors, people that have a message to put out there, entrepreneurs alike, to be able to go out there and navigate this very fast evolving landscape of getting media and getting our reach out there. Melanie Johnson is joining me, where she is a Wall Street Journal and USA Today best-selling author, 16 times Amazon bestseller, and the CEO and co-owner of Elite Online Publishing. Had a background in TV where she was a news anchor in Detroit. She was a Miss Michigan as well as runner-up for Miss America, and we'll talk about how we've actually translated a lot of her achievements that she's done in TV, and then she went on and created this organization where she's helping all these individuals truly have success and break through barriers online. She's created some charities around auction consignments and has done some real estate, has her TED Talk, owns her own podcast, and is actually mentoring so many people in media, amongst many things. So I'm very excited to have her on the show to share some of her insights. Melanie, welcome.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it. Gosh, I sound like I'm a busy person.
Yeah, that's like when I was going through your bio, I was like, oh my God, like there's a lot that's going on here. And, you know, you've kind of gravitated towards media, I think, from the start. Like you were on
Mhm.
TV, you were being an anchor. And so maybe take us into how was the media landscape back then? Because I feel like there's a lot of core things that have changed.
Oh man, so I hate to date myself, but back then cable didn't have a lot of penetration, right? So it was really the big three networks plus the independent stations is who I worked for, was an independent station. And the owner of that independent station was making like a net to him was making like $1 million a month. So, and that was just on an independent TV station. I mean, that was where you could print money if you owned a TV station back in the day. And then cable started to get out there. And then during that process, my then husband and I started a TV station, got awarded an FCC license down here in Houston. And so just had a piece of paper and built a TV station from scratch. And again, it still was very popular to have a TV station because there were only so many licenses, and most of the audience sat around the TV at night and watched TV, whether it was cable, but cable was still maybe only 50% then. And then slowly the internet came. And then my life kind of fell apart in 2008, 2009 between my divorce, and then my husband went filed for bankruptcy after the divorce. And then I was like, oh my gosh, everything is coming to a stop. But people kept saying, well, you should stay in television. And at the time, I just thought TV was going to be a dinosaur because YouTube had come out. This is like, 2009. And I thought everybody can be their own TV station now. You don't need to get permission and beg for someone to have you on media. And it's been a slow death, I will say. It's kind of been now, I mean, we just saw The Late Show just got canceled. It's not making the revenue that it did. The news revenue is way down on networks as well as cable stations. People are consuming more and more through social media and through YouTube and creating their own content. So the shift has really gone away from the major corporations and them controlling the narrative as well as the eyeballs. And what I love now is people can control their own content and what they want to say. You don't have to be edited by somebody else. You can put this podcast on and I can say whatever. I can have my own podcast and say whatever, pretty much. And then people really, really get to know you. So the landscape has changed so much over the course of the years. And I really like where it's gone because the gatekeepers have opened up, just like in publishing. Before you had to have a traditional publisher, that was the only way to get your book out there. And then Amazon broke loose and said, hey, anyone can publish their book. You don't have to be approved by someone. And it's just opened up the narrative where everyone's perspective can be much wider. And it's so cool to me that someone whose voice might have been silenced because they couldn't have gotten their book out there can now do that.
Mm. I think this is such an interesting thing because I remember during the pandemic, a lot of these TV shows that were highly edited, highly produced, suddenly everybody was, thrown back to having to do things from their living room. And then you saw the quality gap between what was being produced by the TV networks versus those
Yeah.
creators online had really, you just start to recognize like, wow, there's a rich media here. It's not just somebody in his basement creating a YouTube video. Like people are putting on great shows.
Yeah.
And so there's been like that level playing field, but on the flip side, there might be also a lot of noise now, right? Because not all shows are created equal. There's no more great curator of what goes through, and there's a bit of an intimidation by how much media is out there. And so I feel like that's probably what you're supporting people with right now is that, well, now that everybody is a creator, how do I even stand out?
Yeah. And really to stand out, I mean, of course, books is my number one thing. When you curate a book, you instantly have instant credibility and you become the expert. They say the two most trusted people are doctors and authors. So that puts you in that category right there. But then also it's becoming that brand of one, right? Having that content. I love the book because it's your pillar and your base, like your foundation for everything, because you can create thousands of pieces of content once you've taken all of the noise in your head and put it down into one concise place. Like you might be writing blog posts and no one's going to find all your blog posts, but if you curate them and put them all into a book, then they have a complete voice in one place. Like you've one-stop shopping, so to speak, for someone to get to know you, like you, and trust you. But then you can create videos from that. You can create a quick, post from that and start to have your voice and your content and start to be cut through the noise by people knowing who you are and having that niche. So know what you want to talk about. Some people have a lot of niches, right? You might be, I mean, let's say you're just you're a plumber, not just a plumber. Plumbers are making a lot of money these days. But if you look to become the best plumber and become the most expertise plumber by having your voice, and everyone connects to somebody different. Like I say, here in Houston, Texas, there's churches on practically every corner, but people go to the church where they connect to the minister that's telling them the message that they can relate to. So, yeah, there might be a lot of people talking about leadership, but you don't connect to all of them. There's a few that you're honing into and listening, like, oh man, I'm digesting all of this guy's content or this woman's content. I love what they're saying. I understand what they're saying. Someone else might be saying the same thing, but they say it in a different way and you don't get it. So I think that's how you stand out in today's audience and don't worry about, oh, well, I'm not going to do it. There's too many people talking about leadership or sales or whatever the topic is. But no one knows it the way you do. No one has your stories and your experiences the way you do. So you're going to stand out because you're going to be different and you're going to find your audience.
It's so funny because my book, Selling with Love, exists. There's somebody who has Selling with Heart, and then there's somebody who has Sell with Love, and we all have our market. We all have our
Yeah.
audiences. We actually are speaking to very different people in very different
Hmm.
ways, and we still get to exist. But I'd have to ask you one of these technical questions, which is, I hear the term ebook,
Hmm.
and I'm wondering, what is the difference between being an author of a book or creating an ebook? Is there like a set definition, or is there like a set difference
Yeah.
between the two?
So some people say, oh, I made an ebook, but they don't sell it on Amazon. So to
Mm,
me, an ebook is a digital copy that when you sell it on Amazon, you have to download the Kindle app, right? And the Kindle app you can have on your phone, your computer, your iPad. So you could have your whole library of, 20, 50, 100 books. So when you're on a trip, you can go through your library and figure out which book you want to read. I remember trying to decide which book I'm going to bring with me on vacation. I don't want to take 10 of them. So that's a published ebook. Some people put ebooks, they call it. It's really a digital book on their website, like as a free lead generation.
mhm.
So, and I tell people you can do both, right? You can put your book and publish it so you had the advantage of having that published book, but also publish it as a paperback, as an audiobook, maybe even a hardback book, because it gives you a lot of different ways that people consume content, again, like we talked about. Some people like that physical copy, and it reaches different audiences. And then once you've published it, now Amazon is working for you. Amazon's going to promote your book to the audiences they think that we're going to like the book. And what people don't think about is the SEO of Amazon. So if I were to search your name on the first page, your Amazon book's going to come up on that first page. And if your publisher was smart, not all publishers are, they connect your Amazon author page there as well. What goes on that is your bio and all the books that you've published if you publish more than one. So you've got this SEO working twice for you, and you have it for perpetuity and you're not paying for it. Right. So that's the advantage. So, yeah, I think digital books are great. The minimum we do when we publish an author is an ebook and a paperback. We feel like you really need the digital and the physical copy.
I feel like there's a different perceived maturity level of your book if it has a paper version. Like I feel
Yeah.
like an ebook is got not enough barriers to entry. And when you
Right.
actually go and create a paper book, it's almost like a sign of credibility, a sign of like authority, and at least going through the process. And I remember when I was considering writing my book, it was actually through conversations with friend, which was like, well, writing a book is hard. It's like it's perceived as hard, and
It
it's not like
is.
putting up a blog post like you said. And so there's so
Right.
much in a world where there's no barriers for you to kind of publish yourself out there. The amount of
Yeah.
people that take the route of actually putting a book together is much more
Hmm.
limited. And so I'm happy that you're doing now. For people who might be, thinking a book, oh my God, that seems out of my depth. What's usually the advice you give for people who might think that maybe I don't even realize I might have a book in me?
A lot of people aren't writers, and that's what stops them. I'm not a great writer. My son always says, "Mom, don't tell people you don't like to write or you can't write." I said, "But, I'm a terrible speller. I had ADD back then. I had dyslexia where I would reverse things, but I can communicate." So with today's tools especially, you can record. We use Otter all the time. I have a VIP day coming up this coming week where the author flies in and we spend a whole day and we ask questions and we start to craft the book and decide who the ideal audience is, the avatar, what the book should be about, what the theme should be that goes through the whole book. And then we get around 6 to 10,000 words that are actually in chapters that day. So it can be overwhelming. So some of my tips are like you could hire us to do VIP day, but you can also use a trick that I have called the 10 by 10 by 3. So for nonfiction books, of course. So if you get asked, even at a dinner party, so what do you do? Well, how do you do that? Tell me more about that, right? So, and even on your website, you get frequently asked questions. What are the questions you get asked all the time? Those are chapters or parts of chapters of a book right there. Just if you expand on those and expand on the knowledge and add stories to those, then what are the should ask questions? What are the questions you should be asking me that if you knew what I knew, you'd be asking me, right? So, like you move to a new city and you're looking for a house and they're looking, what's the neighborhood that has the best prices? And you say, what you should be asking me is what has the best school district because that's going to give you the best resale value. Right. So, and then the third part is having those stories that I mentioned just a little bit ago, but having like 3 stories that go with each of those answers to those questions that illustrate that. And that's what people connect to. They remember the stories. So that's a great way to get started. And then again, if you're not great, you get stuck at the keyboard and you're like, I'm stuck. I've written 2 sentences, don't know what to go. One part, and people like to edit as they go. Don't edit, just keep writing. But a great way is to have a friend, like, look at you, you and I were you're asking me questions, I'm talking a lot. So you could even invite a friend over and say, talk to me about my question, ask me my questions, let's make it a conversation. I'm going to record it on Otter. I love Otter. I use that all the time. It transcribes it in real time and makes an audio recording. And now you have a raw transcript there that you can start with and start to manipulate it or send it to an editor. So, and remember, there's ghostwriters, there's book coaches, there's editors, there's publishers, that we can all help you along the way so it's not overwhelming. The Minimalist, have you ever heard of the book The Minimalist?
Yeah. They
So
made
The
a show about
Minimalist,
it, didn't they?
yeah. So
Yeah.
it was like I said, they took their blog posts, curated them, turned them into a book, and then the book became a movie. And they not only did it once, they did it twice. So I always tell people if you're Writing blogs, write them with purpose. Like, think about that. I'm going to do a series of blogs this year, but they're going to turn into content for my book. So, like the first, you know, 6 blogs are going to all be on one topic, and that's going to be for this chapter. And all those blogs are going to turn into that chapter of that book. I say if you're going to do a podcast, right? You're going to create your own podcast. Then each episode is a chapter of the book or part of a chapter of the book. So you're creating content on purpose. So if you're not starting with the book, let's reverse engineer it. And the content you are creating, create it with the intent that it could be turned into a book and give you that volume and that credibility at the end of the day.
You've already highlighted the tool Otter, which kind of brings us to the age of AI being so accessible now. How are you seeing that being so as a tool? Is it something that we should be using excessively? And maybe there's some areas that we should be careful when using a tool like AI to help us structure our content.
Yeah, we're using it a lot. I mean, not necessarily to create books, but I would say for content, short form content, I like it for the thinking of it. Give me some ideas. Hey, I want to make post about how to write a best-selling book and give me some ideas for social media posts. So use it as a thinking idea bucket. Use it as analyzing. Hey, analyze my website. What can I be doing better? And then give me suggestions and then ask more questions from there. And then creating, which is like in the book bucket and things like that. You're actually creating the content. So I always say, like our new book, Be Recognized, we used AI to help us do that book. We created a custom GPT. We uploaded all the content that we had, videos and things that we wanted to be a part of that, and then said, create a book outline from there. And then create bullet points that things that should be included in each chapter from there. And then we could expand on it. But again, it has to be in your voice and it has to have your stories. It doesn't always know your stories. And even some of the stories we uploaded when I was being interviewed didn't come out right. So you have to go in and
Mm,
edit. So I say for a book, it's like 20% you put your content in, the AI might do 50%, and then you got to do another 30% on the back end to get it
mm.
really tweaked and really white. You have to put the work in. So it's not going to do the whole book for you. And if it does, the book has no soul. And it really is not going to tell people who you are or connect with you or make them feel trusted by you. So you just got to use it. I think it's great for that architecture, to get the kind of the framework of everything. But at the end of the day, it really has to be your voice.
This fascinates me because I got my book done before AI was a thing. And so I paid
Ah,
tens of thousands of dollars to have somebody who has experience in structuring books and to understand how a good outlines could flow. And
hmm
that was the core of all the work that I had to do to give me
yeah.
permission and to make me fall into flow into actually
hmm
writing each of the chapters. And now we can do that with AI and it's so accessible. And I find that's just because the biggest barrier is like, I don't know how to write or everything. You like, it can give you the outline based on what your intent is. That's amazing. And the rest is just us talking about our stories. So I I can't believe how low these barriers are, but there's almost like an overwhelm of how easy it is that you get an overwhelm of it. Like I've seen people. Okay, let me back up and tell a story because
Yes.
I was working in an organization and they love using AI. And then when I came in and I'm running it as a CEO, and they're like, look, we have like these 10 reports generated by AI about what are our plans, what are our forecasts, what are we trying to do with our company. And it was these big AI reports that was showing forecasting plans, priorities, but that no soul part was there. And it was like an overwhelm of information. It wasn't bad information, but there was just something that made me go like, there's too much. I don't even know what to do with all this data.
Yeah.
Where, what's going on when it comes to writing books? Like your no soul part, what are you seeing there?
Yeah, and you know what? I've discouraged people from using it too much, and you've got to stack. And the other thing I like is trying different platforms to see what it comes up with. There's a great one called Chat Hub, and this one it's a Chrome plugin, and then you can pay $20 a month or whatever. But it'll do. You can put a prompt in, and it'll do 6 of the different open AI sources at one time. So it's interesting to see the difference that you get. But one of the things I was going to interject when you said something earlier about technology is I am not the techie one of our group here, right? My business partner is way more techie than I am. And I learned how to code using Claude. So I created a book ROI calculator, like how much money can I make with my book, not from sales, but getting leads and speech and gig and all that type of stuff. And it created all the code for me and the layout for me. And then I just sent it to the web person and it got integrated on our website. I'm like, oh man, I'm going to be dangerous now. So now, I mean, Claude does it. GenSpark, I think, is doing it as well. Some of these others are doing the code, and it's pretty crazy how fast you can do something. So speed to market has just exploded. Um, yeah, that's one of the things I really like about it.
So what do we focus on? Like what if I'm knowing that all these tools are getting existent, like we've seen the wave of the internet has made it that everybody can now publish. With this wave of AI, it's like, well, everyone can kind of write now. It's much less expensive to have people that
Yeah.
edit, people that help structure. We just so what's the essence? Like what is the humanity part that is essential for us to keep as we go into this industry?
Personal story. You've got to have personal story and personal brand. That's the most important part. You need to stand out whether you work for a big corporation or you're a solopreneur, is developing that personal brand. And some people say, well, what if your big corporation doesn't want you to have a personal brand? And I think that's a conflict as long as you are not a conflict, but you know what I mean? They should not see it as a conflict is what I'm trying to say, because as they're promoting themselves, you're developing your personal brand. You're also developing or promoting the company that you're working for. But the best thing about that is, let's say, I mean, Microsoft had 9,000 layoffs. So if people know who you are and they can go on your Instagram, your YouTube, your LinkedIn, and they can see really who you are before they even interview you, that makes a big difference. They're like, "Oh, I just didn't have a 20-minute interview with this guy. I can go back and see who he really is and his vibe and his culture and what he feels and believes in." I think that's why that's so important. And there was an actor that I saw on, I think it was on Instagram, and he said, "So I went in for a job audition. They loved me, but they wanted to know how many Instagram followers I had, how many TikTok followers I had." TikTok followers. So, like, if you're not developing your personal brand, that's gonna be the new age. You're gonna bring you into a corporation, and when they hire you, they're gonna wanna know how many followers you have, because if you can promote them, then that's a benefit to them. So why should they pick someone who's like, "Oh, I'm not on Instagram, I'm not on TikTok, I'm not on any of that," versus someone who has 1.8 million followers and they're have a great culture and great values and you like them, they're gonna hire them over you.
Yep. There's a slight backlash being that, oh my God, do I need to go play this game? It feels exhausting. Do you have any tips for somebody
It
who's
is exhausting.
I know, right? So it's like, oh wow, now I need to do something else. Any words of advice, any ways of making it so that it doesn't consume your entire life either?
Yeah, and it's if you're a solopreneur just starting out, like, it helps if you have a team, but then you're like, "But I don't have money for a team."
Mm.
So, but there's so many tools out there now that are not very expensive. You have to spend a little bit of time. You can learn anything on YouTube, anything. So if you can figure out how to use, like Canva, learn how to use Canva, and you can bulk post. You can make 100 posts at one time, go bulk a bunch of videos that you can make at one time, and then you can put it into a scheduler that's also like $20, $30 a month. And then boom, all of a sudden you have 2 months of content already scheduled and done. So, kind of bulk your time together and do it and figure out the tech enough that you can do it. So you're going to have a learning curve. And that's really the message for today's entrepreneurs and young people, is you have to have skills, right? So if you're 50 and you just lost your job, like Jim Rohn used to say, how am I more valuable to the marketplace? Well, you've got to learn skills. They might be AI skills, they might be social media skills to make you more valuable to the marketplace. So you're going to have to take a breath. You're going to have to educate yourself and get new tools and new education to know how to navigate the new world that's out here. Because a lot of people in the jobs they're in, they don't have to. They haven't been pushed to have to do that because it's been cushy and you're just doing the same thing they used to. But businesses are being disrupted. And so they need coaching. They need people like us that will take you on and will coach you through this process to make you a brand of one to stand out in the marketplace. And how, like, let's make a plan of who you are and how you want to present yourself and start creating content like that and help navigate that world.
Melanie, one of the things I find is quite different with the current innovations happening, whether that's, let's focus on the AI one, is when the internet came up, it was like, well, if you had the internet tech savvy skills, you actually got to really take a good chunk of the market share because you
Yeah.
understood the tool, which had barriers for you to understand. I think in the current age of AI is the difference between knowing how to use the tool and like being able to leverage it for yourself is not a
Yeah.
significant skill to develop. I think that a lot of people are making it overcomplicated on how it works, but it's
Yeah.
actually not that complicated. Where I see the table is actually switching towards wisdom being one of the key things that people have that takes time to develop. And now that you can access the technology much easier, that's not the competitive advantage anymore. It's if you have wisdom, it's easier than ever to get that knowledge out because the tools are
Yeah.
becoming so easy to use. And so I'm excited for those people that,
It's
might be in
true.
their 50s. They have the wisdom that so many people in their 20s are probably lacking at this point.
Yeah, and now they can get it out in so many different ways and create the content really fast. I mean, you can record things and have it transcribed, and ChatGPT helps you do so many different things. It's going so fast. All the different tools are changing. I felt like a 50-year-old is going to be like, I learned the internet. Isn't that enough? Like, really? Now I got to learn this whole new thing? Are you kidding me?
But it's like it's the simplest, less barrier tool that I've ever seen. Like, and even if I'm thinking about all the marketing tech, like I was really heavy. I am a guy who loved the tech of 2010, but the amount of blood, sweat, and tears and figuring out and connecting things and bugs, and it was like there was an expectation and the reality was just not close. That was a lot of the stuff I had to struggle with then. Now I'm behind on the technology and I'm seeing like you can get things talk to each other, things work effortlessly.
Yeah.
Tools that exist, like you've mentioned, Canva is like, wow, it's been designed for a user experience that's easy and accessible to all. This is
Yeah.
awesome. And so I love the fact that you've zeroed in on the fact that our stories are going to be one of the things that allows us to build that personal brand and actually relate to people. Are we supposed to be trying to create more stories? And how do you actually pursue that?
Yeah, and some person on my team said, "Can you send me a funny story from publishing?" And I went, "Oh my gosh, I can't think." Like, it was like I was put on the on like, I don't know, it was like I was blank. I couldn't figure out how to do it. But it really is, I think, when you have the conversation and you're not in a vacuum, like you're just talking, someone says something that reminds you of something else, of curating those stories. And a great way too is when you think of a story, or like you and I are having this conversation, all of a sudden I think about a story, write a sentence down or something in the notes of your phone to trigger, like you start keeping a catalog of stories. So you have a list of stories that you have that you can pull from about different experiences. And then you can take the list, right? If you have enough of what it's about, like this is a funny story about publishing. This is, a success story about a book, about an author. And then copy and paste that and put it into ChatGPT and say, organize this. So they're all the funny stories are in one together, all the success stories are in another thing together. So it helps with that organization of the whole thing. And there's even things like fun things you can do, like Sona, I think it's Sona, that creates songs. You can create custom songs. You can give it a prompt, make a song about Sell to Love and about the book. Make a song about this and make it a rap song or make it a jazz song. And it creates the lyrics and everything. And next thing you know, you have a theme song. I mean, there's so many different tools out there. That's what I think is overwhelming. Um,
Mm.
but you can start with one and get success with that and realize it's really the prompts, asking the right questions. And we've been saving some real in-depth prompts that have a lot of detail with them. There was this one we saw the other day where they went into GenSpark, but first they started with Perplexity. They created this real elaborate prompt, and then they put it into GenSpark and made a video. So it's for IKEA. An IKEA box drops down in the middle of an empty room, and then it explodes, and the whole room is full of IKEA furniture, a bedroom. and it's only like 10 seconds long. And you think, oh my gosh, I mean, I'm back from TV production days, commercial days. That would be 100 grand to make that whole thing with the whole staff and everything else. And they did it for free. But on YouTube, if you find this, it gives you the whole prompt that they use to create the video for scene one and all the details. So we've copied that prompt and now we're like, okay, now we just have to like tweak it to be, oh, a book is going to drop in the middle of a room. It's going to explode and then it's going to have all different content of the book and have little graphics with it. So it's having those really detailed prompts that you can use and tweak and use for your own brand and your own business.
Where does creativity fall into the necessary skill set? Because that's a very creative way of using something existing and then coming up with this idea. Where do you see that fit into the equation for success?
And I think, again, you have to utilize the idea factory of OpenAI. Say, give me 10 ideas or 5 ideas of a creative video that can show how IKEA can decorate a bedroom. And so then it's going to spit out ideas. You might not like any of them, but you can say, give me 5 more. Tweak it this way. Let me ask a better question. And then you might not like any of those, but you might brainstorm one of your own because of what you read there. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The what I've noticed is this whole writer's block was one of the biggest issues. And it sounds like you can just take the last 4 sentences you wrote and just I've just hit a writer's block. Can you give me anything to help me get unblocked? And
Yeah.
like, this is it.
Give me some ideas of what I should write next. Like, here's what I have so far.
God. So and AI again, things are getting better. They're already great. This is
Oh, yeah.
crazy.
Every week it's new. I belong to like an AI learning mastermind group, and we meet every week for 90 minutes. And it's just training and what's the newest tools and what did you create this week? What did you learn? And here's some really just I feel like I should put in the chat. I'm like, my mind is stretched again. Like it's hard to almost come back from the meetings because I'm like, oh my gosh, like I don't even know how to absorb all of that stuff because there's so much and it goes so fast and changes so fast. And you have to be willing to learn something knowing it might be obsolete, right? We started like 5 years ago with a tool called Jasper, and you could put a prompt in there. Did you use Jasper?
I'm aware of it, but that was like the
Yeah.
granddaddy.
And I'd say, "Hey, write this so it sounds like, Brad Pitt," and it would write it in Brad Pitt's tone, and, we thought that was so cool, but now we don't use Jasper at all, so because there's all these other tools that are much more advanced. So, I mean, think about Yahoo came out, but then Google crushed Yahoo, but there's gonna be different things that you're gonna have to learn along the way and be willing to say, "I'm gonna learn this, and it might go away, and I might switch over to something else," and be willing to spend the time to switch over. Like they were saying, GenSpark has gotten way more advanced than ChatGPT. Well, we've created all these projects in ChatGPT. We've created custom GPTs. We have custom prompt things going out. We've got all this infrastructure growing in there. Now we're like, we got to change to GenSpark now?
Mm.
What? But you have to be willing to experiment and be willing to change and just know it's the wild, wild west.
Melanie, you're very much on the cutting edge when it comes to using AI to its best of its abilities. How
Thank
much is it
you.
necessary to be on the cutting edge for the average person that's maybe looking to get themselves be more recognized out there?
I wanna say you need to jump in. You need to really dive in headfirst and do it because otherwise you're gonna get left behind. And even though I'm saying, like, you have to be adaptive and learn new things, it's like learning, new language. Like, if someone said, "Hey, you have to become a lawyer now," or you have a brand new job, there's different lingo, there's different, things you have to learn and systems and the process and how it works. So the sooner you start training your brain to think in a different way, the farther ahead and faster you'll be. It'll help your business sooner. So I think, to me, action takers are money makers, right? You've got to just go ahead and do it. And again, like I'm educating myself. I'm spending not just the 90 minutes, I'm spending more than that every week learning some of this. And it's exciting. You're learning something new. You feel like you're growing, you're alive, and to have these conversations is really fun. My neighbor called me the other day and she goes, "You're gonna be so proud of me. You're just gonna," she's not technical at all. She goes, I actually went on the computer and I went into ChatGPT and I said, make a travel itinerary to Georgetown because she was going, or to Georgia. She was going to her daughter's university. It did the whole trip. It gave me restaurants to stop at. It gave me the place to get gas. It gave me all this stuff. She goes, aren't you proud of me? I'm like, I am. I'm so proud of you. So, it's just taking that step. Otherwise, she would have done probably just Google doing each thing. Well, let me look for a hotel. Let me look for a rest, each time. And this did the whole thing for her. So I think it's important for your personal brand. I think what is a good exercise for all of us? Put your name in and say, what do you know about me? And go from there and then say, how do you think I should develop my personal brand? Just do those two things if you do nothing else and see what happens.
Melanie, that is a powerful way to bring this conversation to a close with an action for everybody to take after listening to this. I did do that. I think it is a very useful thing to do because that is the new SEO. There's so much that people can go and do with AI, and I do agree with you that writing your book is one of the biggest ways to at least stamp into the ground what is your message and where do you stay relevant. And I'm glad that you're helping entrepreneurs and authors to be able to become that. Where can people find you, and what are the best next steps that people can do to connect with you? And maybe if they are on a journey to write a book, they can definitely use your services.
Go to eliteonlinepublishing.com. So we have all our information there. Check us out at Instagram, and we have a free book there, Strategic Writing Systems, that helps you, that describes the 10 by 10 by 3 in there. And there's a bunch of stuff that will really help you kickstart and get your book written. And then we also have a whole marketing bundle of a bunch of ways you can market your book and market yourself is in there on Instagram, which is Elite Online Publishing. So check us out there.
Melanie, you're on the Selling with Love podcast, so I have to ask this one question. What does selling with love mean to you?
Oh, it means don't just sell to sell. It means bring the heart into it. Do it because you want to help somebody and the product or service you have is going to help them, and that you genuinely know you're the best person to do it and your company's the best company to do it for them. And if you're not, and you're genuine enough to say, hey, you know what? We're not a good fit. My dad used to do this with insurance. He was an insurance salesman, and he would come right out and say, like, hey, you know what? You can get a better deal with this other company. It kind of goes back to what is that? Miracle on 34th Street. Remember when, I don't know if you ever watched that movie, but it was Macy's against Gimbels. And Macy's started with the real Santa Claus was sending him to other stores. And they're like, oh my gosh, you can't do that. That's horrible. But then people loved it because they knew they weren't just trying to sell them to sell them. They were looking out for what was best for the customer.
Melanie, thank you so much for your time, your message, and all the ideas that you've given for everybody tuning in. A couple key things here is, number one, if you want to have your authority be cemented, writing a book is definitely something that you'd want to consider to stand out, and it's easier than ever with all of the suggestions suggested on this episode. You can really get started with having the outline and focusing on your stories. Put together that catalog, get that book of all your stories put together, and it's going to help you whether you're doing public speaking, writing a book and such. It's something that I've kept into my inventory and I do apply it. So I do love that you've given that recommendation. And, use AI. It's happening. It's becoming easier than ever. I promise it's less hard than anything you had to do about learning the internet. Things are more seamless, things are more easy, and you have resources like Melanie that are sharing a ton of ways that you can use it to its maximum potential. Melanie, thank you again once again. It was a pleasure. And for everybody else tuning in, go create that content, get recognized, and continue selling with love. Thank you so much for listening to the Selling with Love podcast. We have some previous episodes you can tune into right here. And if you prefer the short form content where you get to the point in under 10 minutes, we do have a ton of clips from our best episodes that are being shared on this channel as well. So pick which one supports you the most. And of course, thank you for liking, subscribing, and of course, selling with love.